The fork was halfway to his mouth when his mother stood up, tapped her wine glass with a knife, and announced to the entire restaurant that her son was the reason their family name had become a joke. 23 relatives turned to stare. Waiters froze mid-step. And all Ethan Brennan could do was set down that fork and wonder how long she'd been rehearsing this. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Wherever you're watching from, whether you're at home, on your commute, or sneaking this during your lunch break, I see you, and I appreciate you. How are you doing today? Really, I want to know. And listen, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are we even doing here? Go ahead and hit that button. You're about to witness something that'll stay with you long after this video ends. Trust me on this one. Now, let me tell you about Ethan Brennan. 32 years old. Quiet. The kind of man who paid his bills on time, kept his head down, and never asked for applause. He wasn't flashy. Didn't need to be. While his cousins posted their luxury cars and vacation photos online, Ethan drove a 7-year-old sedan and wore the same 3 shirts in rotation. People assumed he was struggling. People assumed wrong. His mother, Patricia, was a different story entirely. She lived loud. New wigs every month. Designer bags she'd parade at family gatherings. A tongue sharp enough to cut through steel and an ego that demanded center stage at every event. She'd built a reputation as the family matriarch, the one who held everyone accountable, the one who wasn't afraid to speak truth. Except the truth was the one thing Patricia Brennan had been avoiding for years. The dinner invitation came 3 weeks prior. Patricia called it a family reunion celebration, but Ethan knew better. She only gathered the troops when she wanted witnesses. Still, he came. He always came. Because despite everything, despite the years of criticism and cold shoulders, he'd never stopped trying to be the son she claimed she wanted. The restaurant was upscale. White tablecloths, soft jazz, waiters in bow ties. Patricia had reserved the private dining section, which meant she'd spent money she supposedly didn't have. Ethan noticed but said nothing. He greeted his aunts and uncles, hugged his younger sister Naomi, and took his seat at the far end of the table. The position felt intentional, isolated. Like she'd placed him there for maximum visibility when the execution began. Dinner started pleasant enough. Small talk about jobs and children. His cousin Andre bragged about his new promotion. His Aunt Lucia showed off photos of her grandson. Patricia smiled and played hostess, pouring wine and laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny. But Ethan felt it, the tension beneath her performance, the way her eyes kept sliding toward him with something that looked like anticipation. The appetizers came and went. The main course arrived, grilled salmon for most, steak for the uncles. Ethan barely tasted his food. He was watching his mother, trying to figure out when she'd strike, because she always did. It was just a matter of timing. She waited until dessert. The waiter had just set down a chocolate mousse in front of Patricia when she stood, slowly, deliberately. She tapped her knife against her wine glass 3 times. The conversations died. All eyes turned. And then she smiled. Before we dive deeper, if you're new here, hi love. I'm glad you made it. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss stories that touch the heart. Because what happens next? You need to see it. Patricia cleared her throat and placed one hand over her heart like she was about to deliver a eulogy. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, she began, her voice carrying across the room with practiced ease. Family is everything to me. You all know that. And that's why I felt it was important to gather everyone here, to address something that's been weighing on my heart. Ethan's stomach tightened. We don't talk about our struggles enough in this family, Patricia continued, her tone shifting to something somber, almost pastoral. We hide our shame. We pretend everything is fine. But I've decided that ends tonight. Because if we don't face our problems, how can we ever fix them? Naomi glanced at Ethan with worried eyes. He kept his face neutral. My son, Patricia said, turning to face him directly. The entire table followed her gaze. Ethan has struggled for years. And I've tried, Lord knows I've tried, to help him find his footing. But at some point, a mother has to admit when her child has become a burden. The word landed like a slap. Someone gasped. Andre's smirk was barely concealed. Uncle Jerome shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Patricia wasn't finished. He started a business that failed within 6 months. Lost money that wasn't even his to lose. He enrolled in a master's program and dropped out after 1 semester. Wasted tuition. He's bounced from job to job, never staying anywhere long enough to build something real. And through it all, he's had the audacity to act like he's doing fine. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. "I've covered for him," Patricia said, her voice rising with emotion. Made excuses. Told people he was finding himself. But you know what?
I'm tired.
This family is tired of carrying dead weight. The restaurant had gone quiet. Even the staff had stopped moving. Patricia reached into her purse and pulled out a stack of papers, printed screenshots, bank statements, old messages. She spread them on the table like evidence in a courtroom. These are his debts. Loans he defaulted on. Bills he couldn't pay. Credit cards maxed out. I have it all here because I've been the one cleaning up his messes while he walks around pretending to have dignity. Naomi stood. "Mom, this is..." "Sit down," Patricia snapped. Naomi sat. Ethan still hadn't moved. Hadn't blinked. His silence was unnerving, and Patricia seemed to sense it. She pushed harder. "I've given him chance after chance. Welcomed him into my home. Fed him.
Supported him.
And what do I get in return? Nothing. Just disappointment and embarrassment. So tonight, I'm making it official." She looked around the table, making sure everyone was paying attention. "Ethan is no longer welcome in my house. He's cut off. Completely. If he wants to continue being a failure, he can do it on his own dime." She sat down with the finality of a judge delivering a verdict. The silence stretched.
Thick.
Suffocating. And then Ethan spoke.
His voice was calm. Too calm.
"If I'm such a burden..." He raised his head slowly and looked his mother directly in the eyes. "Who do you think has been paying all your bills since Dad left?" The air left the room. Patricia's face went blank. Andre's fork clattered against his plate. Aunt Lucia's hand flew to her mouth. Uncle Jerome choked on his wine, coughing violently while his wife patted his back. Naomi whispered, barely audible, "Mom, what is he talking about?" The public execution. Patricia recovered quickly. Too quickly. Her face shifted from shock to indignation in the span of a heartbeat, and she let out a laugh that sounded more like a bark. "Paying my bills? Is that the fantasy you're selling now?" Ethan didn't flinch. He sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, expression unreadable. That composure seemed to unsettle her more than any outburst would have. "You can barely keep yourself afloat," Patricia continued, her voice gaining strength as she addressed the table again. "And now you want to sit here and claim you've been supporting me? That's rich. That's actually hilarious." But nobody was laughing. The family sat frozen, eyes darting between mother and son like spectators at a tennis match. The atmosphere had shifted. Something had cracked in Patricia's performance, and they all felt it. "Show them," Uncle Jerome said quietly. All heads turned to him. He set down his wine glass and leaned forward. "If you've been paying her bills, show them." Patricia's smile faltered. "Jerome, don't encourage his delusions." "I'm not encouraging anything," Jerome interrupted. "I'm asking a simple question. Either he's lying and we can all move on, or..." He trailed off, the implication hanging heavy in the air. Ethan reached into his jacket pocket.
Slowly.
Deliberately. He pulled out his phone and unlocked it with his thumbprint. The blue light illuminated his face as he scrolled, tapped, then set the phone down on the table. "Your rent," he said, his voice steady and emotionless. 350,000 naira every month. I've paid it for the last 4 years. That's 16.8 million naira total." Patricia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Your electricity bill," Ethan continued, "averages 40,000 a month. Sometimes more when you run that air conditioner all day in every room. I've covered it without fail."
He scrolled again.
"Your water bill, your cable subscription, your phone bill, both lines because you needed a business number that you only used to gossip. your car insurance, your health insurance, that hospital stay last year when you had pneumonia? The bill was 623,000 naira. I paid it in full so you wouldn't have to do a payment plan. Aunt Lucia gasped. 600,000? That's not even the half of it, Ethan said, still scrolling. The loan you took from First Bank 3 years ago? The one you told everyone you were working overtime to pay off? I've been making those payments. 75,000 naira monthly. That's 2.7 million so far. The table erupted in whispers. Cousins leaning toward each other. Aunts exchanging glances. Patricia's carefully constructed narrative was crumbling in real time, and she knew it. You're lying, she hissed, but her voice lacked conviction. You're making this up to embarrass me because I called you out on your failures. Am I? Ethan's voice cut through her defense like a blade. He picked up his phone and turned it to face her. Here's your landlord's account number. Here's the transaction history. Every single month. For years. Want me to read the narration on each one? They all say the same thing. Rent for Patricia Brennan, flat 4B, Guarimpa Estate. Patricia's face had gone pale. She reached across the table, trying to snatch the phone, but Ethan pulled it back smoothly. Don't, he warned. The single word carried weight. And hey, while you're here, if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you as part of the family. Go on, I'll wait. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Naomi had tears in her eyes. Ethan, is this true? He looked at his sister, and for the first time that evening, his expression softened. Every word. But how? Naomi shook her head, confused. You drive that old car. You live in that small apartment. You never acted like you had money. Because I didn't need to act like anything, Ethan replied. I just needed to make sure the people I cared about were taken care of. Even when they spent years telling me I was worthless. The accusation landed. Patricia flinched. Andre, who'd been smirking earlier, now looked uncomfortable. Wait, so, you've just been secretly paying for everything? Why wouldn't you say something? Because family isn't supposed to be transactional, Ethan said, his gaze returning to his mother. I didn't pay those bills to hold them over her head. I paid them because she's my mother, and I didn't want her to struggle. I thought that's what you did for family. You helped quietly. You didn't demand recognition. But she's been... Andre gestured at Patricia. She's been dragging you for years. I know. The simplicity of those 2 words silenced the table. Patricia finally found her voice. It came out shaky, desperate. I never asked you to pay anything. If you did, that was your choice. You can't throw that in my face now just because I told the truth about your failures. The truth. Ethan's laugh was bitter. You want to talk about truth? He stood. The movement was so sudden that several people jumped. Ethan reached into his other jacket pocket and pulled out a folder.
Not a phone this time. Actual papers.
He dropped it on the table in front of his mother with a heavy thud. Open it, he said. Patricia stared at the folder like it might bite her. Open it, Ethan repeated, his voice harder now. With shaking hands, Patricia opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the first page, and whatever color was left in her face drained completely. She flipped through the papers, 2, 3, 4 pages, each one making her sink further into her chair. What is it? Aunt Lucia asked. What's in there? Ethan answered for her. Bank statements. Official ones. Stamped and certified. Every transaction I just mentioned, with dates, amounts, and account numbers. Every rent payment. Every utility bill. Every loan installment. All traced directly from my account to hers, or to the companies she owes. Uncle Jerome leaned over to look at the papers. His eyebrows shot up. These are legitimate. These are from the bank. Because I went to the bank this morning, Ethan said. I knew she'd call me a liar. I knew she'd try to twist this. So, I got everything in writing. Proof that can't be disputed. The family crowded around Patricia, trying to see the documents. She tried to close the folder, but Jerome gently took it from her hands and passed pages around the table. Each person who read them looked up at Ethan with new eyes. Shock, respect, confusion. Patricia sat frozen, exposed, as her carefully crafted image shattered around her. Then Aunt Lucia asked the question everyone was thinking. She looked at Patricia with narrowed eyes and said slowly, "If he's been paying every single bill for 4 years, then where has all your money been going?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Patricia's eyes went wide. She grabbed for her purse, her hands fumbling with the clasp. "I need to leave," she muttered. "I don't feel well. This is too much." But Ethan moved faster. He placed his hand on the back of her chair, not touching her, but blocking her exit. "Sit down, Mom." Ethan let me.
Seat. Down.
The command in his voice made everyone go still. Patricia slowly lowered herself back into her seat, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Ethan walked back to his side of the table. He didn't sit. He stood there, looking at his mother with an expression that was equal parts pain and resolve. "You want to know where her money's been going?" he asked the table. "I can tell you that too." Patricia's voice came out as a whisper. "Please don't." But Ethan was done protecting her. The calm that shatters the room. Ethan pulled out his phone again. This time, he didn't just show it to his mother. He connected it to the restaurant's television screen mounted on the wall. The manager started to protest, but Uncle Jerome waved him off and handed the man 5,000 naira. "Give us 10 minutes. The screen flickered to life. A spreadsheet appeared, rows and columns of numbers and dates. Ethan used his phone as a remote, scrolling through the data. "For 4 years," he began, his voice measured, "I tracked everything. Not because I planned to use it against her, but because I needed to understand why she kept asking for more, why the bills kept getting higher, why she always seemed stressed about money despite me covering every expense she had." He zoomed in on a section of the spreadsheet highlighted in yellow. "This is her salary from her job at the ministry. 85,000 naira monthly after tax. Not much, but enough for personal expenses since I covered everything else. Food, transport, clothing, entertainment. That should have been more than sufficient." Naomi nodded slowly, doing the math in her head. "But every month," Ethan continued, "she'd call me with emergencies. Medical bills that didn't exist. Family members who needed help. Church offerings. Donations. Every story designed to pull more money from me. And like an idiot, I sent it. Another 50,000 here. 100,000 there. Sometimes more." He scrolled to a different section, this one highlighted in red. "Then I started noticing patterns. Money I sent for specific things wasn't being used for those things. The medical emergency money never went to a hospital. The family crisis money never went to family members. So I started digging." Patricia had gone completely still. She wasn't even pretending to defend herself anymore. "What I found," Ethan said, his voice dropping lower, "was a second account." The room went deathly quiet. "An account opened 3 years ago," he continued. "Opened using my BVN, my bank verification number, without my permission or knowledge. An account in my name that I never authorized." "That's fraud," Uncle Jerome said, his voice sharp. "That's actual fraud." "Yes," Ethan agreed. "It is." He pulled up another image on the screen. Bank statements from this second account. Transaction after transaction. All outgoing transfers. Large amounts. Too large. The money I thought was going to emergencies? Ethan zoomed in on specific transactions. It was being funneled through this account and sent somewhere else. Rent payments. Car notes. Flight bookings. All to the same person. He clicked to the next image. A WhatsApp conversation appeared on screen. Messages between Patricia and someone saved as J. The messages were intimate, affectionate, financial. "Baby, I sent the money for your rent. J. I booked your flight to Dubai. First class like you wanted. The car note is paid. You don't have to worry about anything." Aunt Lucia covered her mouth. Andre looked away. Naomi had tears streaming down her face. "She's been supporting a man," Ethan said flatly, "for 3 years. Using money she stole from me through fraudulent accounts and fabricated emergencies. Paying his rent, his car, his lifestyle, while standing in front of his family and calling me a failure." Patricia finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't understand. What don't I understand? Ethan's composure cracked slightly. That you stole from your own son? That you committed fraud? That you humiliated me publicly while building a secret life on my money? By the way, if you're listening and feeling this story already, you might as well subscribe. Don't be shy, join us. Because this story isn't over yet. Not even close. Patricia opened her mouth to respond, but the words died in her throat. Because at that exact moment, the restaurant door opened. A man walked in. Tall, well-dressed, expensive watch glinting under the lights. He looked around the private dining area until his eyes landed on their table. On Patricia. He didn't smile. Didn't greet anyone. Just walked straight toward them with the confidence of someone who belonged. Patricia's face went from white to gray. The man stopped at the table. He looked at Ethan, then at Patricia, then back at Ethan. I need to talk to him, the man said, pointing at Ethan. Not you. Patricia grabbed his arm. Jay, please, not now. He pulled away from her grip. Ma, with all due respect, you've said enough already. It's my turn. And then he pulled out a chair and sat down right next to Ethan Brennan. First plot twist, the back-end truth. Ethan didn't move away from the stranger. Didn't react at all, really. He just watched as the man settled into the chair, adjusted his expensive watch, and let out a long breath. My name is Jason Draven, the man said, addressing the entire table. And before you jump to conclusions, I'm not here to defend her. Patricia made a sound like a wounded animal. Jason, please. I'm here to defend him, Jason said, cutting her off and gesturing to Ethan. Because I didn't know. I swear on everything I didn't know. Uncle Jerome leaned forward. Didn't know what? Jason ran a hand over his face. He looked tired, ashamed. I didn't know where the money was coming from. Not really, she told me. He paused, choosing his words carefully. She told me her son was rich, that he was successful in tech or finance or something, that he'd given her access to funds because he wanted to take care of her, and that she was allowed to help people she cared about with that money. Naomi's eyes widened. She told you Ethan gave her permission? Not just permission, Jason said. She made it sound like it was his idea. Like he was this generous son who wanted his mother to live well and spread the blessing around. She showed me screenshots of transfers, told me he approved of her helping me get on my feet after I lost my job. He looked directly at Ethan.
I thought you knew about me.
I thought you were okay with it. She said you two had an agreement. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he still didn't speak. Jason continued. I lost my job 2 years ago. Downsizing. I was broke, struggling, couldn't make rent. We met at a church program, and she was kind, encouraging. Said her son had been through similar struggles and would want to help. When she offered to cover my rent for a few months while I got back on my feet, I thought it was a blessing. A few months turned into 2 years, Ethan said quietly. I know, Jason admitted, and I'm not proud of it. But every time I tried to refuse, she'd insist. She'd say you were doing well, that you wanted to help, that it meant nothing to you financially. She made it seem like charity work, like something you'd approved. Aunt Lucia shook her head in disbelief. And you believed that? Why wouldn't I? Jason shot back. She's his mother. Why would a mother lie about her own son? Why would she make up an entire story? He looked at Patricia with something close to disgust. I didn't know he was struggling. I didn't know he was the one working multiple jobs to send her money. She painted a completely different picture. What picture? Naomi asked softly. Jason hesitated. Then he sighed. She told me Ethan was a trust fund kid who'd wasted his opportunities. That he'd burned through an inheritance and now owed her his life because she'd been covering for him. She said the money she was giving me was actually hers, that she'd earned it by cleaning up his messes and was finally using it for something good. The table erupted. She said, what? That's sick. How could she? Ethan held up a hand, and surprisingly, everyone quieted. He looked at Jason with an unreadable expression. Did you believe her? At first, Jason nodded slowly. Yeah, I did. She was convincing. She had stories, details, examples. She made you sound like a spoiled kid who never appreciated her. But then, he trailed off. Then what? Ethan pressed. Then I met your sister, Jason said, glancing at Naomi. By accident. At a supermarket about 6 months ago. We started talking, and she mentioned you. How hard you worked. How you'd always taken care of the family. How you never asked for anything in return. Nothing she said matched what your mother had told me. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. You knew 6 months ago? I suspected, Jason corrected. But I didn't have proof. And when I confronted her, he gestured at Patricia. She told me Naomi was young and naive. That she didn't understand the full story. That you'd fooled everyone into thinking you were some kind of hero, when really you were just trying to save face. And you believed her again, Ethan said. It wasn't a question. Not entirely, Jason replied. That's why I started watching. Paying attention. Asking questions. And the more I learned, the more things didn't add up. She couldn't keep her story straight. Said you worked in tech, but couldn't name your company. Said you traveled for work, but you were always in Abuja. Small inconsistencies that became bigger the more I noticed them. He pulled out his own phone and scrolled through it. Then 2 weeks ago, she told me something that finally made everything click. What? Uncle Jerome asked. Jason looked at Patricia. She'd shrunk into her chair, trying to disappear. She promised me an apartment. Said Ethan had an old place he wasn't using, and that she could sign it over to me because he didn't deserve it anyway. She said it was part of his debt to her for all the years she'd supported him. If you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, don't break my heart like that. Tap the button. Let's keep growing together. Because what Jason says next changes everything. Ethan went very still. What apartment? The one in Maitama, Jason said. 2-bedroom flat. She showed me photos, floor plans, even took me to see it. Said it was yours, but you never stayed there because you were ashamed you couldn't afford to furnish it properly. She said she'd put it in my name as a gift for being there for her when her own son wasn't. The table exploded in outrage. That's theft. You can't just transfer someone's property. Did you sign anything? Jason shook his head quickly.
No.
I told her I needed to think about it. That it felt wrong taking someone's apartment, even if they supposedly didn't want it. That's when she got angry. Started saying I was ungrateful. That I was questioning her generosity. She gave me an ultimatum. Accept the apartment and stop asking questions, or lose her support entirely. So what did you do? Naomi asked. I hired a private investigator, Jason said simply. The table went quiet. Cost me my last savings, but I needed to know the truth. He dug into everything. Found out about the second account. Found transfer records. Found evidence of fraud. And he found Ethan's real story. He turned to Ethan, and there was genuine remorse in his eyes. You're not a trust fund kid. You're a software developer who built a freelance business from nothing. You work contracts for international companies. You've been making good money for years, but you live simply because you're sending most of it to her. You never asked for credit. Never complained. Just quietly kept your family afloat while she told everyone you were drowning. Ethan's hands were clenched, so tight his knuckles had gone white. The investigator gave me his report 3 days ago, Jason continued. I came here tonight because I knew she was planning this dinner. I knew she was going to humiliate you. And I couldn't let that happen without you knowing the truth. That I was a fool, yes. That I took money I shouldn't have, absolutely. But I didn't know I was taking it from you. I didn't know she was stealing from her own son to fund a lie. Patricia finally broke. She let out a sob and buried her face in her hands. But no one moved to comfort her. Jason reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He placed it on the table in front of Ethan. That's every naira I can account for. It's not everything. I spent some before I knew the truth. But it's 47% of what she gave me over 2 years. It's all I have left. And I'll work to pay back the rest. Ethan stared at the envelope but didn't touch it. I also brought this, Jason said, pulling out another document. A signed statement detailing everything she told me. Every lie she used. Every manipulation. My investigator said it could help if you decide to press charges for the fraud. And
He paused.
if you do press charges, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. Because what she did to you isn't just wrong. It's criminal. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia lifted her head. Mascara ran down her cheeks. Her hands trembled. Please, she whispered, looking around the table. Please don't tell them the rest. Everyone froze. Ethan's head snapped toward his mother. The rest? Patricia's sob turned into a wail.
Please.
I'm begging you, not the rest. But Jason was already reaching into his pocket again. The receipts nobody expected. Jason pulled out a small flash drive and held it up. The investigator was thorough. Very thorough. When I said I wanted the full truth, I meant it. Uncle Jerome pushed his plate aside. What else is there? Everything, Jason said quietly. He looked at Patricia.
I'm sorry, Ma.
But he deserves to know. They all deserve to know. Patricia shook her head frantically. Jason, please. I'll pay it all back. Every kobo. I'll sell everything I have. Just please don't. Don't what? Ethan's voice was ice. Don't tell them what else you've been hiding. Jason handed the flash drive to Uncle Jerome. There's a laptop in my car. Should I get it? Yes, Jerome said immediately. Several other family members nodded in agreement. Jason left and returned 2 minutes later with a sleek laptop. He set it up on the table, inserted the flash drive, and opened a folder labeled Patricia Brennan, Full Report. The folder contained dozens of files. Documents.
Spreadsheets.
Photos.
Audio recordings.
Where do I start? Jason asked, looking at Ethan. Ethan's voice was hollow. The beginning. Jason clicked on a file titled Property Records. A scanned document filled the screen. It was a deed. A house deed. The house your mother lives in, Jason said. The 3-bedroom in Guarimpa. She tells everyone she bought it with her savings from years of work. She did, Patricia interjected desperately. I worked hard for that house. You paid the down payment, Jason corrected. 50,000 naira. The rest. He highlighted a section of the document. Funded entirely by Ethan. Monthly mortgage payments of 75,000 for 6 years. That's 5.4 million naira. The house is in your name, he said to Patricia, but every actual payment came from him. Naomi put her head in her hands. Oh my God. There's more, Jason continued. He opened another file. Car registration documents. The Honda Accord you drive. Registered in your name, purchased 3 years ago for 2.3 million naira. Paid in full by Ethan on the same day. There's a bank receipt showing the transfer from his account to the dealership. Patricia's breathing had become ragged. The business, Jason said, clicking on another file. This one is interesting. Patricia Fabrics and Fashion. Registered 2 years ago as a textile supply business. Your mother told people she'd finally achieve her dream of entrepreneurship. I did achieve it, Patricia said weakly. That business is mine. The startup capital was 5 million naira, Jason read from the document. Wired from Ethan's account in 3 installments over 2 months. But here's the thing. He zoomed in on the company registration document. The business isn't registered in your name. The table leaned in closer. It's registered under. Jason squinted at the name. Gloria Okonkwo. Who is that? Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. My investigator found her, Jason continued. She's Patricia's friend from church. Your mother told you, he said to Ethan, that she was starting a business and needed capital. You gave it to her. But instead of registering it in her own name, she put it in her friend's name. When I asked Gloria about it, she said Patricia told her it was for tax purposes. That it was temporary. That was 2 years ago. Tax purposes? Uncle Jerome scoffed. That's theft.
Pure theft.
Wait, Aunt Lucia said, her voice shaking. If the business is in someone else's name, who's getting the profits? Jason clicked on a bank statement. The business account shows monthly profits averaging between 300 and 500,000 naira. Every month, the money is split. 70% to Gloria's personal account, 30% to Patricia's account. 70%. Naomi gasped. But Ethan funded the entire business. Exactly, Jason said. He provided all the capital. He's never seen a kobo of profit. His mother told him the business was struggling, that it barely broke even, that she was working hard just to keep it afloat. Meanwhile, she and Gloria have been splitting over 4 million naira a year in profits. Ethan hadn't moved, hadn't reacted. His face was a mask, but his eyes were dying. Before we continue, quick question. Are you subscribed? If not, go ahead and fix that for me. I promise, I'll keep the stories coming. Because this is the kind of truth that needs to be witnessed. Jason wasn't done. He opened another folder. The apartment Jason mentioned. The one in Maitama. Your mother didn't lie about that existing. Ethan does own it. How do you know? Andre asked. Because I own it, Ethan said quietly. Everyone turned to him. I bought it 4 years ago. An investment property. I was going to renovate and rent it out, but Mom asked me to wait. Said she might want to move there eventually, that Guarimpa was getting too noisy. So, I held off on the renovations. She was never planning to move there, Jason said. She was planning to transfer it to me. The investigator found draft documents in her email. Papers that would sign over the deed. She'd been consulting with a lawyer about how to do it without your knowledge or consent. That's forgery, Uncle Jerome said, his voice hard. That's criminal fraud. Patricia was sobbing openly now, but the family had stopped caring. They were too shocked, too horrified by the depth of her deception. One more thing, Jason said. He looked at Ethan with sympathy. The investigator found this. I debated showing you, but you deserve to know everything. He clicked on an audio file. Patricia's voice filled the room, crystal clear. Ethan is a fool. Always has been. He thinks he's helping me, but really, I'm securing my future. That boy is so desperate for my approval that he'll give me anything I ask for. And the best part? He never checks. Never questions. Just sends the money like a trained dog. Another voice, female, laughed. It was Gloria. What if he finds out? He won't, Patricia's voice said confidently. He's too ashamed of his past failures to look too closely at his finances. And even if he did, what's he going to do? Cut off his own mother? Everyone would think he's heartless. I have all the power here. The recording ended. The silence in the restaurant was absolute. Even the staff had stopped moving, frozen in the doorway. Ethan stood up slowly. He looked at his mother with an expression that was beyond anger, beyond hurt. It was empty. Ethan, Patricia whispered. Baby, please. Don't call me that. I can explain. Explain what? His voice was quiet, but it cut through her pleading like a knife. Explain the fraud? The theft? The years of lies? Explain how you used my money to build a life while telling everyone I was a failure? Explain how you planned to steal my property and give it to someone else. He stepped closer to her chair. Or maybe you want to explain that recording. Where you called me a fool. Where you admitted you were manipulating me. Where you laughed about it. Patricia reached for him, but he stepped back. I paid your rent for 4 years. I paid your bills. I paid your mortgage. I funded your business. I covered your hospital stays, your loans, your emergencies, real and fake. I did it quietly, without asking for anything in return, because I thought that's what family meant. His voice cracked slightly. And all you had to do was not humiliate me. That's all. Just treat me with basic respect. But you couldn't even do that.
Ethan, I'm sorry.
Sorry for what? For getting caught. Patricia couldn't answer. Naomi stood and walked to her brother's side. She took his hand, tears streaming down her face. One by one, other family members stood too. Not with Patricia. With Ethan. Uncle Jerome picked up his phone. I'm calling my lawyer friend. What she did is prosecutable. You could press charges. Jerome, please, Patricia begged. You committed fraud, Jerome said coldly. You opened accounts in his name without permission. You stole money. You planned to forge documents to steal property. These aren't small things, Patricia. These are crimes. Patricia looked around the table desperately, seeking an ally, finding none. Even Andre, who'd smirked at Ethan's humiliation earlier, couldn't meet her eyes. "What happens now?" Aunt Lucia asked quietly. Ethan looked at Jason. "You said there was more. About the apartment. About what she was planning." Jason nodded and clicked on another file. Email exchanges appeared on the screen. Messages between Patricia and someone listed as Lawyer K. "These emails span the last 4 months," Jason explained. "Your mother was actively planning to transfer the Maytom apartment to me. But not just transfer, she wanted to make it look like you'd given it to me willingly." He scrolled through the messages, stopping on one dated 3 weeks ago. "She asked the lawyer if she could forge your signature on a gift deed," Jason said. The lawyer told her it was illegal and refused. So, she found another lawyer. Someone less concerned with ethics. A new email chain appeared. This one showed Patricia offering a lawyer named Benson 50,000 naira to prepare documents that would transfer the property without Ethan's knowledge. "Did she do it?" Uncle Jerome asked. "Did she actually forge anything?" "The documents were prepared," Jason said. "They're on this drive. Dated and ready to file. She just needed my signature to complete the transfer. That's why she gave me the ultimatum. She needed me to sign before you," he gestured at Ethan. "Figured out what was happening." Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "When were you supposed to sign?" "Tomorrow," Jason said. "She told me to meet her at a notary office at 10 a.m. Said it was just formality paperwork. That everything was already approved." Naomi's hand flew to her mouth. "You would have lost your apartment and never even known until it was too late." "Not just the apartment," Jason said grimly. He clicked on another file. The investigator found draft documents for the Guarimpa house too. She was planning to transfer that out of her name and into Gloria's name officially, claiming it as payment for a business loan that never existed. Then Gloria would rent it back to her at a fraction of its value. "So she'd get to live in a house Ethan paid for," Andre said slowly, "while someone else owned it and Ethan couldn't do anything about it." "Correct," Jason confirmed. "And the business?" "She had papers drawn up to officially sell it to Gloria for 1 naira.
1.
Making it look like a legitimate business sale, when really it was just transferring an asset Ethan funded completely out of his reach. "How much?" Ethan asked suddenly. Everyone looked at him. "How much did I actually give her? Total?" Jason pulled up a final spreadsheet. The numbers were staggering. Based on 4 years of records, Jason said, rent payments, mortgage, bills, business capital, loans, medical expenses, emergency requests, and cash transfers, approximately 38.7 million naira. The number hung in the air like a bomb. 38 million? Naomi's voice was faint. "That's not including the appreciation value of the properties or business profits," Jason added. "If you calculate those, the total value approaches 60 million naira. Uncle Jerome let out a low whistle.
60 million.
And she called him a disgrace. Patricia had stopped crying. She just sat there, staring at nothing, completely broken. "There's one more thing," Jason said quietly. He looked reluctant to continue. "I almost didn't include this, but the investigator said you needed to know." He clicked on a folder labeled Family Conversations. Inside were screenshots of WhatsApp group chats. "Family group chats. These are from your family group," Jason said. "The one Patricia participates in regularly." He opened one conversation from 6 months ago. The family members in the chat were discussing a cousin's wedding. Someone mentioned Ethan should contribute to the group gift. Patricia's message appeared. "Don't bother asking Ethan. He has nothing to contribute. Broke as usual. I'll cover his share so the family doesn't look bad." Another chat from 8 months ago. Someone asked if Ethan was coming to a family reunion. Patricia's response: "He said he's busy, but we all know he's embarrassed. Can't afford the transport. I offered to pay, but he's too proud to accept help." Chat after chat. Month after month. Patricia telling the family Ethan was struggling, broke, too proud to accept help. Meanwhile, she was depositing his money into her account and living off his support. "She built an entire narrative," Jason said. "Made the family believe you were the one who needed rescuing. That she was the one holding everything together." Naomi was crying again. "We all believed her. Every single one of us. We thought you were struggling and too proud to say anything. That's why nobody questioned her. Uncle Jerome said, realization dawning. When she criticized you, when she called you a failure, we thought she was being tough out of love. We thought she was frustrated because she'd been helping you and you weren't improving. She weaponized your sympathy, Jason said. Made you think she was a struggling single mother carrying a deadweight son. When the truth was the exact opposite. Ethan finally moved. He walked around the table slowly until he stood directly in front of his mother. Patricia looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. Why? He asked simply. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I don't know. That's not an answer. I was scared, she whispered. After your father left, I was scared of being nothing, of being the abandoned wife with no status. When you started doing well, I saw an opportunity, a way to maintain the life I'd always wanted. And it spiraled. One lie led to another. One request led to more. And I couldn't stop because stopping meant admitting what I'd done. So you decided to destroy me instead, Ethan said flatly. I never meant to destroy you. You called me a family disgrace in front of everyone. You humiliated me publicly. You printed out fake evidence of my failures. You were planning to steal my properties and transfer them to strangers. What part of that wasn't meant to destroy me? Patricia had no answer. Settle in, get comfortable, and if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. You're safe here. Because what Ethan does next will restore your faith in standing up for yourself. Second plot twist, the second life she hid. Ethan took a step back from his mother. He looked at Jason. The investigator found all of this. What else did he find about her life? About where she's been going?
Who she's been with?
Jason hesitated. Are you sure you want to know? Some of it is personal. Tell me everything. Jason clicked on a folder labeled Location History and Activities. A map appeared showing tracked locations over several months. Your mother told you she was working overtime at the ministry, Jason began. That she had extra shifts, weekend work, special projects. She used that explanation for why she needed more money and why she was often unavailable. He zoomed in on specific locations marked on the map. These are the places she actually spent her time. This one, he pointed to a marker, is a hotel. Transcorp Hilton. She's been there 47 times in the last 6 months. Always on days she claimed to be working overtime. Naomi frowned. Why would she go to a hotel? She wasn't going alone, Jason said quietly. He pulled up photos. They were grainy, taken from a distance, but clear enough. Patricia entering the hotel with a man. A different man from Jason. Older, distinguished-looking. Who is that? Uncle Jerome demanded. Chief Adebayo Okoro, Jason said. Married. 3 children. He's a director at a construction company. The investigator found that your mother has been seeing him for over a year. Patricia's head snapped up. How did you? You had no right. You told me you were single, Jason said, his voice hard. You told me you'd been alone since your husband left. You never mentioned you were seeing someone else. Someone married. He clicked through more photos. Patricia and the chief at restaurants. At parties. At events. Always together. Always intimate. She's been living a double life, Jason continued. With me, she played the struggling single mother who needed help. With the chief, she played the sophisticated, independent businesswoman. And with her family, she played the sacrificial parent carrying a failure of a son. 3 different people, Aunt Lucia said in disbelief. She was 3 different people. The chief has been giving her money too, Jason added. He pulled up bank records. Not as much as Ethan, but substantial. Monthly allowances of about 200,000 naira. He thought he was supporting his girlfriend's lifestyle. He had no idea she was already being fully supported by her son.
So she was triple-dipping, Andre said.
Taking from Ethan, taking from you, taking from this chief. All while crying poverty. Worse than that, Jason said. He pulled up another document. Credit card statements. She opened credit cards in her name and maxed them out. Then told Ethan she needed money for emergencies. He'd send the money, she'd pay the minimum on the cards, and use the rest for shopping, travel, entertainment. The statements showed purchases at luxury stores, expensive restaurants, spa treatments, designer boutiques. This necklace. Jason zoomed in on a receipt. 280,000 naira. Purchased the same week, she told Ethan she needed money for grandmother's funeral contribution. Grandmother died 4 years ago, Naomi whispered. I know, Jason said. The investigator cross-checked every emergency she claimed. 70% of them were completely fabricated. The other 30% were real problems she'd created herself, through her spending. He pulled up travel records. Flight bookings, hotel reservations. She's been to Dubai twice in the last year. Lagos 5 times. Port Harcourt 3 times. All first-class flights. All 5-star hotels. All paid with money she claimed was for emergencies or bills. While telling us she could barely afford transport to work, Uncle Jerome said, his voice shaking with rage. There's more, Jason said. The chief was planning to divorce his wife. For her. Gasps around the table. He told her he was going to leave his family and marry her. Had started proceedings. Your mother was ecstatic. She saw it as her path to real wealth and status. But there was a problem. What problem? Naomi asked. His family was doing a background check on her, Jason explained. Standard procedure for wealthy families. They were about to discover her debts, her frauds, her lies. The chief would find out she wasn't the successful businesswoman she claimed to be. So your mother panicked. He pulled up more email exchanges. These were between Patricia and a lawyer. Different from the property lawyer. This one specialized in debt consolidation and credit repair. She needed to clean up her financial record fast, Jason said. She needed money to pay off debts, close fake accounts, cover her tracks. That's why she ramped up the pressure on you, he looked at Ethan. Over the last few months. The increased emergency requests. The desperate calls. She wasn't in trouble. She was trying to hide evidence before the chief's family exposed her. Did they find out? Aunt Lucia asked. Jason nodded slowly. 2 weeks ago. The background check came back. The chief's family presented him with a full report. He confronted her. Ended everything. That's why she's been so volatile lately. Why she planned this dinner. She needed someone to blame for her life falling apart, and you, he gestured at Ethan, were the easiest target. Ethan stood perfectly still, absorbing everything. His face showed nothing, but his hands were shaking. She was going to pin everything on you, Jason continued. Make the family believe you'd been a burden, that your failures had dragged her down, that she'd sacrificed everything for you and got nothing in return. Then she'd pivot to being the tragic mother, gain sympathy, and use that sympathy to ask for more money from relatives to recover from supporting you. That's sick, Andre said. That's actually psychotic. It's desperation, Jason corrected. She'd built a house of cards. When one thing fell, the chief leaving, everything else started falling too. She needed to control the narrative before people started asking questions. He closed the laptop. The investigator compiled everything into a full report. It's all here. Bank fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, forgery, false pretenses. If you wanted to press charges, you'd have more than enough evidence. Uncle Jerome stood. You should press charges. All of them. Jerome, please. Patricia's voice was broken. He's my son. He wouldn't. He's your victim, Jerome corrected sharply. For 4 years. And you were about to make him a public joke to cover your own crimes. Patricia turned to Ethan, hands clasped together, pleading. Baby, I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I'm still your mother. Doesn't that mean anything? Doesn't family mean anything to you? The question hung in the air. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. You don't get to use family as a shield after you used it as a weapon. Can I ask a tiny favor? Hit that subscribe button. It means more than you know. Especially now, as we reach the moment where Ethan makes his choice. The stranger's confession. Jason stood up and faced the family. I have one more confession. My own. Everyone turned to him. I told you I hired an investigator 3 days ago. That's true. What I didn't tell you is why I really came here tonight. He took a deep breath. I came to apologize. And to make things right. He pulled out a check from his pocket. Not the envelope he'd placed earlier. A new one. This is everything, he said. Not just what she gave me. Everything. I sold my car yesterday.
Sold my electronics.
Borrowed from friends. This check is for 2.1 million naira. It's the full amount she gave me over 2 years, calculated with interest. He placed it in front of Ethan. I know it doesn't fix anything, Jason continued. I know I was part of the problem, even if I didn't know the full truth. I benefited from your suffering. That makes me complicit. Ethan stared at the check, but didn't touch it. I also contacted Gloria, Jason said. Your mother's business partner. I told her everything the investigator found. She was horrified. Claimed she had no idea the business was funded with stolen money. Said your mother told her it was inheritance money from a distant relative. Did you believe her? Naomi asked. I don't know, Jason admitted. But I made her an offer. Either she signs over the business to Ethan voluntarily, or I take the evidence to the police and she gets charged as an accomplice to fraud. What did she say? Uncle Jerome leaned forward. Jason pulled out another document. She signed this morning. Full transfer of ownership. The business is legally yours now, he looked at Ethan. As it should have been from the start. Gloria will stay on as manager if you want, but she'll be an employee, not an owner. And all profits will come to you. Naomi's eyes widened. She just gave it up? She didn't have a choice, Jason said. The evidence was clear. She either cooperated or went to prison. She chose cooperation.
He paused.
She also wrote this. He handed Ethan a letter. Ethan opened it slowly and read aloud. Ethan, I don't know you, but I owe you an apology. Your mother told me the business money came from her family. I never questioned it. I should have. I benefited from your generosity, without knowing you were being stolen from. The business is yours. I'll manage it honestly if you want me to, or I'll step away if you prefer. Either way, I'm sorry for my part in this. Gloria. He folded the letter and set it down. There's more, Jason said. He looked uncomfortable. The Guarantha house. The one your mother lives in. I spoke to a property lawyer. Because the mortgage payments all came from your account, you have legal grounds to claim ownership despite the deed being in her name. Patricia made a strangled sound. You can't take my house. It's not your house, Jason said flatly. It never was. You paid 50,000 naira. He paid 5.4 million. Any court would side with him. The apartment too, Uncle Jerome added. Since she tried to fraudulently transfer it, you can file a police report and possibly sue for attempted theft. Jason nodded. The investigator already prepared the paperwork. All you need to do is file it. Everything is documented, witnessed, and legally sound. He stepped back and looked at the entire family. I came here tonight to defend him, Jason said, gesturing to Ethan. Because I was a fool who got played, but he was a son who got betrayed. And between the two of us, his pain is greater. So everything I have, the evidence, the money, the confessions, it's all his. To do with as he sees fit. Aunt Lucia was crying. You gave back everything. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, Jason said simply. I spent 2 years taking from a man who is already giving everything. The moment I learned the truth, I knew I had to make it right. It's the bare minimum of human decency. He turned to Patricia one last time. You told me he was a fool. You were wrong. He was kind. And you mistook his kindness for weakness. That's your failure, not his. Then Jason walked to the restaurant door. He stopped and looked back at Ethan. If you need me to testify, call me. If you want to press charges against her, I'll support you. If you want nothing to do with any of us ever again, I'll understand that too. But whatever you decide, know this. You deserved better. You always did. And then he left. The silence in the room was profound. Patricia sat hunched in her chair, destroyed. The family members looked at Ethan with a mixture of awe, sympathy, and shame. They'd all believed the lie. They'd all judged him. Naomi took her brother's hand. What are you going to do? Ethan looked around the table. At his mother. At his relatives. At the evidence of years of betrayal spread across the table like wreckage. Then he looked at his sister and said the words everyone was waiting for. I'm going to walk away. The complete power shift. The family erupted in protests and questions, but Ethan held up his hand. The gesture was simple, but it commanded silence. I'm not pressing charges, he said. Uncle Jerome started to object, but Ethan shook his head. Not because she doesn't deserve it, but because I deserve peace. And prosecuting her would mean years of trials, testimonies, and keeping her in my life. I'm done with that. He picked up Jason's check and the business transfer documents. He picked up his bank statements and the property records. Then he looked at his mother. The Guarimpa house, he said calmly. You can keep living there. I won't take it from you. Patricia's head snapped up, hope flashing in her eyes. But Ethan continued and the hope died. You'll pay me rent. Market rate. 75,000 naira a month. To be transferred to my account by the 1st of each month. If you miss a payment, you move out. Those are the terms. Ethan, please. The business is mine now, he continued as if she hadn't spoken. Gloria will report directly to me. You have no authority over it. Any profits are mine. If you want to work there, you can apply like any other employee. I'll consider it. Maybe. He picked up the documents about the Maytom apartment. This property I'm selling. I don't want it anymore. Too many bad memories attached. The money from the sale will go into an account you'll never have access to. Ethan. I'm changing my phone number, he said. My bank accounts. My addresses. Everything. If you need to reach me, you'll go through Naomi. She'll decide if I need to know about it. You don't get direct access to me anymore. Naomi squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her face. The 38 million you took from me, Ethan said. I'm not asking for it back. Consider it the price of finally seeing who you really are. Some lessons are expensive. This one cost me a fortune, but it was worth it. He stood up and began gathering his documents. The family watched in stunned silence. You wanted to call me a disgrace, Ethan said, looking down at his mother. You wanted everyone here to see me as a failure. A burden. Dead weight. So, let me ask you something. He leaned down so his face was level with hers. How does it feel to realize that the disgrace you described, that was you? The burden?
You.
The person living off charity while pretending to be successful? Still you. I was never the problem, Mom. I was the solution you took for granted. Patricia's face crumpled. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Please don't leave like this. Please give me a chance to fix this. You had 4 years of chances, Ethan said quietly. You used every single one to dig deeper into your lies.
This isn't me leaving you, Mom.
This is me finally stopping you from leaving me with nothing. He straightened up and looked at Uncle Jerome. I want you to be the witness. The rent agreement. The business transfer. I want everything documented so there's no confusion later. Of course, Jerome said immediately. I'll draft everything tomorrow. Legal and binding. Ethan nodded. Then, he turned to the rest of the family. For those of you who believed her narrative about me, I don't blame you. She was convincing. She had years of practice. But now you know the truth. What you do with that information is up to you. I won't be attending family functions anymore. Not because I'm angry with you, but because I need to protect myself from her. And if she's there, I won't be. Aunt Lucia stood up and walked around the table. She hugged Ethan tightly. I'm sorry we didn't see it. I'm sorry we didn't ask more questions. You deserved better from all of us. One by one, other family members stood and apologized, hugged him, promised to do better. Even Andre approached, shamefaced. I laughed earlier, Andre said quietly, when she was tearing into you.
I'm sorry, Mom.
That was messed up. Ethan nodded, but didn't say he forgave him. Some things couldn't be forgiven that easily. Finally, only Patricia remained seated. Everyone else stood around Ethan in a protective circle. The visual shift was complete. She was isolated. He was surrounded by support. Patricia looked up at her son with desperate eyes. What about me? What am I supposed to do now? Ethan's voice was ice. What you've been doing all along. Figure it out. You're resourceful. You managed to steal millions and maintain 3 different lives. Surely you can manage to pay rent and build an honest life for once. But I have nothing. You have a job, Ethan said. You have a salary. You have a house you can live in if you pay for it. That's more than many people have. That's certainly more than you left me with emotionally. He picked up his jacket. The chief isn't coming back, Ethan added. Jason isn't coming back. And I'm not coming back. So whatever life you build from here, it'll be based on truth for once. Who knows? Maybe you'll discover that's enough. Patricia reached for him one last time, but Naomi stepped between them. Don't, Naomi said firmly. You've done enough. Ethan looked at his sister with gratitude. Then he walked toward the restaurant exit. The family followed, leaving Patricia alone at the table with the evidence of her crimes spread around her like ruins. At the door, Ethan paused. He looked back one final time. Patricia sat there, small and broken, surrounded by empty chairs and damning documents. For the first time in 4 years, she looked exactly like what she was, alone with the consequences of her choices. Next time you want to call someone a disgrace, Ethan said, his voice carrying across the silent restaurant, make sure you're not living in the house they paid for. And then he walked out. The family filed out after him, one by one. The restaurant door closed with a soft click. Inside, Patricia buried her face in her hands and finally understood what she'd lost. Outside, Ethan Brennan took his first breath as a free man. The final break, and the line she can never cross again. The parking lot was cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere of the restaurant. Ethan stood next to his 7-year-old sedan, keys in hand, but he didn't get in. He just stood there breathing, really breathing, for the first time in what felt like years. Naomi approached cautiously, as if afraid he might shatter. Are you okay? He turned to her and smiled. It was small, tired, but genuine. I think I will be. The rest of the family gathered around them in a loose circle. Uncle Jerome held the folder of documents protectively. Aunt Lucia had her arm around her daughter. Even Andre stood at a respectful distance, hands in his pockets, looking like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. What you did in there, Uncle Jerome said finally, took more strength than I've ever seen. Walking away instead of destroying her? That's character. I didn't walk away for her, Ethan said quietly. I walked away for me. Revenge would have kept me tied to her. This way, I'm free. Aunt Lucia wiped her eyes. What will you do now? Where will you go? Ethan looked up at the night sky. Stars were barely visible through Abuja's light pollution, but they were there if you looked hard enough. I've been living small for so long, trying not to draw attention, trying not to make her jealous or give her more ammunition. I think it's time I actually lived. What does that mean? Naomi asked. It means I'm going to stop hiding my success, Ethan said. I'm good at what I do. Really good. I've been turning down high-paying contracts because I didn't want the money to show. Didn't want her asking questions or making demands. But that's over now. I'm taking those contracts, building my business properly, maybe even hiring a team. Uncle Jerome smiled. Now that sounds like a plan. I'm moving too, Ethan continued. Getting a new place. Something I actually want to live in, not just somewhere cheap, so I could send her more money. Somewhere with space. Maybe even a home office with proper equipment instead of working from my phone at coffee shops. The family listened, and there was something beautiful about the moment. They were witnessing a man step out of a shadow he'd been trapped in for years. You'll still talk to me, right? Naomi's voice was small. Even with the new number and everything? Ethan pulled his sister into a hug. You're the exception to every rule, Naomi. You always have been. You're the only one who ever asked how I was really doing. The only one who noticed when I looked tired or stressed. You never just assumed I was failing. You actually cared. Naomi sobbed into his shoulder. I should have done more. I should have questioned her stories. You were caught in the same web, Ethan said gently. She's our mother. We're wired to believe her. You're not responsible for her lies. They stood like that for a moment, brother and sister, while the rest of the family gave them space. Finally, Naomi pulled back and wiped her face. When you get that new place, I want to help you decorate it. Like, actually make it feel like home. No more bare walls and borrowed furniture. Ethan laughed, and the sound was lighter than any of them had heard from him in years.
Deal.
But I get veto power on your color choices. I remember your neon pink phase. I was 12. Exactly. The moment of levity felt like oxygen after being underwater. The family laughed, the tension breaking into something resembling normalcy. Uncle Jerome cleared his throat. I meant what I said about making everything legal. Come by my office this week. We'll draft proper contracts for the rent, the business ownership, everything. I want it ironclad, so she can't manipulate her way around it. Thank you, Ethan said. Really? For believing me. For standing with me. We should have stood with you years ago, Jerome replied. But better late than never. Aunt Lucia stepped forward and took Ethan's hands in hers. I want you to know something. You're invited to every family gathering from now on. And if your mother is there, she'll be the one asked to leave, not you. You're not losing this family, Ethan. You're losing the weight that's been crushing you. The words hit harder than Ethan expected. His eyes burned with tears he'd been holding back for hours. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come to Christmas dinner, Lucia said firmly. Say you'll bring your sister, and we'll actually celebrate you for once. Properly. The way we should have been doing all along. I'll come, Ethan promised. New number and all, I'll make sure you have it. Andre finally stepped forward. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Look, man, I was a jerk. I laughed when I shouldn't have. I believed rumors instead of asking you directly. And I spread some of those rumors myself. Told people you were struggling.
Made jokes about it.
I'm really sorry. Ethan studied his cousin for a moment. Then he nodded. I appreciate you saying that. But Andre, going forward, if you have questions about someone's life, ask them. Don't assume.
Don't gossip.
It does real damage. I know, Andre said, shame evident in his voice. I'll do better. See that you do. The family began to disperse slowly, each person hugging Ethan one more time before heading to their cars. Promises were made to stay in touch, to check in, to be better. And for the first time, Ethan believed them. Soon it was just Ethan and Naomi standing in the parking lot. Do you hate her? Naomi asked suddenly. Mom, after everything? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, considering. No, he said finally. I don't hate her. I hate what she did. I hate how she made me feel. But hating her would mean she still has power over me. And I'm taking that power back. Will you ever forgive her? Maybe, Ethan said honestly. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I can forgive her for myself, for my own peace, without ever letting her back into my life. Those are two separate things.
Naomi nodded, processing that.
She's going to try to reach you. You know that, right? She'll find ways. She always does. Let her try, Ethan said. I've got a new number, new email, new boundaries. And this time, I'm not bending them for anyone, not even her. He unlocked his car and opened the door. Before getting in, he turned back to his sister one more time. You know what the craziest part of all this is? He said. What? I feel lighter, like I've been carrying a boulder on my back and finally put it down. I thought taking care of her was my duty, my responsibility. But it wasn't. It was her manipulation. And now that I see it clearly, I realize how much of my life I gave away trying to earn love from someone who is never going to give it freely. She does love you, Naomi said softly, in her own broken way. Maybe, Ethan agreed. But love that costs me my peace, my dignity, and my truth isn't love. It's transaction. And I'm done paying. Before we close this chapter, if you're still here with me, thank you. Thank you for witnessing the story, for understanding that sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Let's build a community of people who understand that boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary.
Hit that button.
I'll be here when you come back. 3 months later, Ethan stood in his new apartment and smiled. It was nothing like the bare, cramped space he'd lived in before. This place had floor-to-ceiling windows that let in natural light, a proper home office with dual monitors and ergonomic furniture, a kitchen with actual counter space, a living room that Naomi had helped him decorate with warm colors and comfortable furniture that didn't come from a secondhand shop. His phone buzzed. A new message in the family group chat, the real one now, the one Patricia wasn't part of. Aunt Lucia, Sunday lunch at my place. Ethan, you better be there. I'm making your favorite. Uncle Jerome. I'll bring the drinks. Andre. Can I bring my girlfriend? She's been asking about the infamous family dinner story. Naomi. Andre read the room.
Andre, sorry.
Just asking. Ethan laughed and typed a response. I'll be there. And Andre, bring her. The more the merrier. He set his phone down and looked around his apartment again. On his desk was a framed photo Naomi had taken at last week's family gathering, the first one he'd attended in months. He was smiling in it, really smiling, surrounded by people who actually wanted him there. Next to it was a different kind of document, a contract for a major project with an international tech company. 6 months of work. Enough money to finally start the investment portfolio he'd been dreaming about. The client had specifically requested him after seeing his previous work. Called him brilliant, a problem solver,
An asset.
words his mother had never used to describe him. His laptop pinged with an incoming video call. He clicked accept, and Jason Draven's face appeared on screen.
Ethan, hey. Got a minute?
Sure, Ethan said, settling into his chair. What's up? I wanted to give you an update on the business, Jason said. He'd been helping oversee Patricia Fabrics and fashion remotely, making sure Gloria stayed honest, and the profits actually went to Ethan now. Sales are up 30% this quarter. Gloria's doing good work. She's implemented some new inventory systems and landed a contract with a hotel chain for custom linens. That's great, Ethan said, genuinely pleased. Send me the detailed reports when you get a chance. Will do. Jason hesitated. There's something else. Your mother came by the office yesterday. Ethan's expression didn't change. And she wanted to talk to Gloria. Tried to convince her to split profits the old way. Said you wouldn't notice if they just skimmed a little off the top. What did Gloria say? She called me immediately and recorded the conversation. Then she told your mother to leave or she'd call security. Your mother left. Ethan nodded slowly. Good. Gloria's learning. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry your mother put her in that position, and that she's committed to running the business honestly. She knows she's on thin ice, and she's not going to mess it up. I appreciate that, Ethan said. And I appreciate you keeping an eye on things. It's the least I can do, Jason replied. Oh, and one more thing. I found a job. Good one. Marketing position at a consulting firm. I start next week. That's fantastic, Jason. Congratulations. Couldn't have done it without getting my life sorted first. Getting clean from your mother's manipulation helped me see I needed to get clean from my own bad decisions too. So thank you for giving me a chance to make things right. You did that yourself, Ethan said. I just stopped being a doormat. You chose to be honest. They talked for a few more minutes about business logistics before ending the call. Ethan leaned back in his chair and looked out the window. Abuja stretched out before him, busy and chaotic and full of possibility. His phone buzzed again. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of him. Hello.
Ethan.
His mother's voice was small, tired. Please don't hang up. He should have hung up. Every instinct told him to. But something made him stay on the line. How did you get this number? I called everyone until someone gave it to me.
I'm sorry.
I know I'm not supposed to contact you directly, but I needed to say something. Ethan waited, saying nothing. I paid the rent, Patricia said. On time. First of the month, just like you said. And I wanted you to know I'm trying. I got help. A therapist. She's helping me understand why I did what I did. Why I felt like I needed to lie and manipulate instead of just being honest. Good, Ethan said neutrally. I hope that helps you. It's hard, she admitted. Living within my means. Not having access to extra money. Not being able to call you whenever I want something. But I'm doing it. I'm trying to be the person I should have been all along. Mom, Ethan said carefully, I'm glad you're getting help. Really? But I need you to understand something. Your growth, your healing, your journey, that's yours. It's not mine to manage or support or validate. You hurt me deeply. And while I don't hate you, I also don't owe you my presence while you figure yourself out. She was quiet for a moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, will you ever let me back in? I don't know, Ethan answered honestly. Maybe someday. But not today. Not tomorrow. Not until I'm certain you've actually changed, not just learned to hide the manipulation better. And that might take years. It might take forever. I need you to be okay with that uncertainty. But you're my son. And you're my mother, Ethan interrupted. Which means you should have protected me, supported me, been honest with me. You chose a different path. Now we both have to live with those choices. He heard her crying softly on the other end. Keep paying the rent, Ethan said. Keep going to therapy. Build an honest life. If you do that, genuinely do that, maybe we can talk again someday. But it has to be real, Mom. No more games. No more manipulation. Real change. Can you do that? I'm trying, she whispered. Then keep trying.
Goodbye, Mom.
He ended the call before she could respond. Then he blocked the number. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. She knew the rules. She'd broken them already. He wouldn't let her do it again. His phone buzzed immediately.
Naomi.
Did she just call you? Yeah, Ethan replied. How did you know? Because she called me right before, begging for your number. I told her no. Someone else must have given it to her. It's fine. I blocked her. But Naomi? Can you let the family know? Anyone who gives her my contact information gets cut off for me too. I'm serious about boundaries now. I'll send a message to everyone, Naomi promised.
And Ethan?
I'm proud of you. For not falling for it. I'm proud of me too, Ethan said and meant it. 6 months later. The conference room was impressive. Sleek glass walls, ergonomic chairs, a view of the Abuja skyline that cost someone a fortune. Ethan sat at the head of the table, his laptop open, his team flanking him on both sides.
His team.
He still got a thrill from thinking those words. So the client wants the system fully integrated by end of quarter, his lead developer said, pulling up a timeline on the screen. That's aggressive, but doable if we allocate resources properly. What do we need? Ethan asked. 2 more developers, at least temporarily. And we need to upgrade the server capacity. Done, Ethan said. I'll approve the hires today. Submit the server upgrade costs and I'll review them tonight. The meeting continued, productive and focused. When it ended, his team filed out, chatting about lunch plans. Ethan gathered his materials and smiled. This was what success felt like. Not hiding his abilities. Not downplaying his achievements. Just doing excellent work and being properly compensated for it. His phone rang. Uncle Jerome. Ethan, you busy? Just finished a meeting. What's up? I have news. Your mother submitted her rent payment again this month. 6 months in a row now. And she included a note asking me to tell you she's still going to therapy and attending a financial literacy class. Ethan absorbed that. Okay, thanks for letting me know. There's more, Jerome said. She's asking if she can come to Christmas dinner. Says she knows you'll be there, and she just wants a chance to see you, even from a distance. She promises not to approach you or cause drama. Ethan was quiet for a moment. What do you think I should do? I think that's entirely up to you, Jerome replied. You've earned the right to make that choice without pressure. If you want her there, I'll allow it with strict conditions. If you don't, I'll tell her no, and that's final. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. After they hung up, Ethan walked to his office window and looked out at the city. 6 months ago, he was sitting in a restaurant being publicly humiliated. Today, he was running a successful business, living in a home he actually loved, surrounded by family who respected him. His mother was paying rent, going to therapy, taking classes. All good things. Signs of real change, maybe. But did he owe her access to his life because of it? No, he decided. He didn't. Growth was good. Change was necessary. But forgiveness wasn't automatic, and reconciliation wasn't required. She'd burned the bridge. If it was ever going to be rebuilt, she'd have to do more than pay rent and attend classes. She'd have to prove over years that she understood what she'd done and why it was wrong. And even then, he might choose to keep his distance. Not out of punishment, but out of protection. He pulled out his phone and texted Jerome. Tell her no. Not this year. Maybe next year if she continues making progress. But I need more time. Jerome's response was immediate. Understood. I'll handle it. Ethan put his phone away and returned to work. There were contracts to review, clients to call, a business to run. His business. Built on his terms. Free from manipulation, free from guilt, free from the weight of someone else's expectations. For the first time in his adult life, Ethan Brennan was exactly where he wanted to be. 1 year later, the dinner table was crowded in the best way. Naomi and her new boyfriend. Uncle Jerome and his wife. Aunt Lucia and her family. Even Andre with his girlfriend, who turned out to be lovely. They'd gathered at Ethan's apartment, his bigger apartment, the one he'd upgraded to after landing 3 major contracts, for a celebration dinner. To Ethan, Uncle Jerome raised his glass. For building something remarkable out of nothing but talent and determination. Here, the table chorused, glasses clinking. Ethan smiled, embarrassed by the attention but grateful for it. It wasn't nothing. It was all of you. Your support meant everything. You did the work, Naomi said firmly. We just stopped being obstacles. The evening passed in laughter and good food. Stories were shared. Plans were made. At one point, Andre pulled Ethan aside. I need to tell you something, Andre said. Mom tried to contact me last week. Asked me to convince you to see her. Ethan tensed. What did you say? I told her no. That you'd made your boundaries clear, and I wasn't going to violate them. She got upset, said I was turning my back on family. I told her she turned her back first, and now she has to live with the consequences. Ethan clapped his cousin on the shoulder. Thank you. That couldn't have been easy.
It wasn't, Andre admitted. She's still my aunt.
But you're my cousin, and she did you dirty. I'm not going to help her manipulate her way back into your life before you're ready. If you're ever ready. I appreciate that more than you know. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, and Naomi was helping him clean up, his sister said, She's changed, you know.
Mom.
I've seen her a few times. She's different. Ethan loaded dishes into the dishwasher. Different how? Humbler. Quieter. She actually listens now instead of just waiting to talk. She asked about you, about your business, your life, but she didn't push when I said I couldn't share details. She just said she was proud of you and hoped you were happy. Do you believe her? Naomi considered. I think she's trying. Really trying. Whether that's enough is up to you. Ethan dried his hands on a towel. I'm not ready yet. Maybe I will be someday. But right now, I'm still healing. Still building the life I should have had years ago. I can't risk that for someone who might backslide. That's fair, Naomi said. And for what it's worth, I think you're right to protect yourself. They finished cleaning in comfortable silence. Before Naomi left, she hugged her brother tight. I'm really proud of you, she whispered. Not for the business or the money or any of that. For choosing yourself. That took guts. I learned from the best, Ethan said. You chose me too, that night at the restaurant. When everyone else might have wavered, you stood next to me. That meant everything. Naomi left with tears in her eyes, the good kind. Ethan locked the door behind her and walked through his apartment, turning off lights. He paused in his office and looked at the wall he'd been slowly filling. His first major contract, framed. A photo of his team at their launch party. A thank you note from a client whose problem he'd solved. Evidence of a life built on honesty, hard work, and self-respect. And in the corner, in a small frame he'd bought last week, was a quote he'd found that resonated deeply. Sometimes the person who walked away simply made space for the life you deserved all along. He read it one more time, then turned off the light. Tomorrow, he had a meeting with a potential investor. Next week, he was expanding his team again. Next month, he was taking a vacation, a real one, to a place he'd always wanted to visit, with no guilt about the cost or time away. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. And for Ethan Brennan, that was more than enough. 2 years later, the email sat in his inbox for 3 days before he opened it.
Sender, Patricia Brennan.
Subject: no expectations, just truth. His cursor hovered over the delete button, but something made him click instead. The email was short. Ethan, I'm writing this with no expectation of response. You owe me nothing.
I know that now.
I've been in therapy for 2 years. I've paid every rent payment on time. I've lived within my means. I've stopped lying to others and to myself. I understand now what I did to you. Not just the financial theft, but the emotional abuse. I made you believe you were a failure while I used your success to fund my delusions. I called you a disgrace while living off your grace. I destroyed your confidence to hide my own insecurity. There's no excuse for what I did. No justification that makes it okay. I was wrong. Completely, devastatingly wrong. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I'm writing because you deserve to know that I finally understand what I took from you. Years of peace.
Trust.
The simple right to be proud of yourself. I can never give that back. What I can give you is this. I'm different now. Not because I want something from you, but because I had to face who I'd become, and I hated her. The woman who stole from her son. The woman who built her happiness on someone else's pain. That woman is gone. If you never want to see me again, I understand. I'll respect that. I'll keep paying rent, keep living honestly, keep working on myself. Not for you.
For me.
Because I have to live with myself, and I refuse to be that person anymore. But if someday, maybe years from now, maybe never, you want to talk, I'll be here.
Changed. Honest.
And finally worthy of the son I never deserved but always had. I'm proud of you, Ethan. I should have said that every day of your life. I'm sorry I waited until I'd lost the right to say it. With love and regret. Mom. Ethan read the email 3 times. Then he closed his laptop and went to make tea. He didn't respond.
Not that day.
Not that week. But he didn't delete it either. He saved it in a folder labeled Maybe Someday. Because healing wasn't linear. Forgiveness wasn't required. But the possibility of it, distant and uncertain as it was, could exist without compromising his peace.
And that was enough.
3 months after that email, at a family gathering, Ethan made a decision. He asked Uncle Jerome to invite Patricia to the next dinner. With conditions. She would sit at the opposite end of the table. She would not initiate conversation with him. She would not ask him personal questions. She could be present, but distant. Patricia agreed to every condition. When the day came, Ethan arrived early. He was nervous, Naomi could tell. But he was also steady, grounded in his own worth in a way he hadn't been 2 years ago. Patricia arrived last, dressed simply, no designer bags or flashy jewelry. She looked older, tired, but there was something different in her eyes. Something real. She saw Ethan and stopped. For a moment, they just looked at each other across the room. Then she nodded once, a gesture of respect, of understanding, and took her seat at the far end of the table. They didn't speak during dinner, but they were in the same room, breathing the same air, existing in the same space without destruction. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't even forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. Fragile, uncertain, built on 2 years of changed behavior and one son's willingness to consider the possibility of healing. After dinner, as people were leaving, Patricia approached Naomi. "Tell him thank you," she said quietly, "for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it." "You're right," Naomi said, not unkindly. "You don't. But he's giving it anyway. Don't waste it." "I won't," Patricia promised. And for the first time, Naomi believed her. As Ethan drove home that night, he felt something unexpected. Peace. Not because everything was fixed, not because the past was erased, but because he'd made a choice from a place of strength, not weakness. He'd offered a small opening, on his terms, with his boundaries firmly in place. And if she crossed those boundaries, he'd close the door again. Without guilt, without hesitation. Because Ethan Brennan had learned the most important lesson of all. His peace was non-negotiable. His worth was not determined by others' opinions. His love for himself came first. The family disgrace had become the family's strongest member. And he'd done it by choosing himself every single day, no matter how hard that choice was. Sometimes the person who walked away simply made space for the life you deserved all along. And Ethan Brennan was finally living that life. If you made it to the end of the story, thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing this journey. If it touched you, if it made you think about your own boundaries, your own worth, then it did exactly what it was meant to do. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. It's strength. It's the beginning of everything good. Until next time, take care of your heart. It's the only one you've got.